Roll it.
Roll it.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Volley House Podcast, episode
58.
58.
We're getting up there.
Kid. We are here at Colca Studios. If you need a firehouse built, give them a call. Ryan Mackey's on the sticks. As usual, be sure to give him a follow at Max_visuals. Fuck you, Kev. That's M-A-C-K-S. And for you, Kevin, that's F-U-C-K.
M-I-C-K-Y-M-O-U-S-E.
Go to volleyhousepodcast.com or DM us to ask us questions and send us in stories or videos you'd like us to review. Also, give us a follow on all social media platforms at Volley House Podcast and subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify. You
didn't grow up watching Mickey Mouse. I know you're too young.
Mickey Mouse is still a thing. What the fuck are you talking about? Sorry, I didn't watch it in black and white when you started watching.
Oh wow, that's a little rough there, buddy.
Let's get into some of our lovely sponsors here, starting with
a lot now.
Our friends at 1-800-BOARD-UP. When the tones drop and you roll out the door, you're there for your community. But when the fire's out and the rigs are back in quarters, families are still standing in the street trying to figure out what comes next. That's where 1-800-BOARD-UP, a Belfour company, comes in. Staffed by retired first responders, they understand the fire service and respond when requested to secure properties and help protect residents during those first critical hours. It's about doing things the right way and supporting the community you protect. 1-800-BOARD-UP and Belfour, backing the fire service beyond the fire ground. And also our newest sponsor, Ultra Bright Lights. Ultra Bright Lights is the trusted source for volunteer firefighter emergency lighting. When that call drops, every second matters. Whether you're responding in your personal vehicle or outfitting department apparatus, Ultra Bright Lights has the high-performance lights, sirens, and flashers you need to stay visible and get there safely. Their gear is built for reliability, built for responders, and priced with volunteers in mind. Head to ultrabrightlights.com, that's lights with a Z, and use promo code VOLLEYHOUSE, it's VOLLY, at checkout to get 10% off your order. Subject to terms and conditions at ultrabrightlights.com. Ultra Bright Lights is there when your community needs you most. Whoa.
What is that?
Sometimes I wish like the sounds that go on in
Wouldn't that be cool?
Like,
come over the mics?
Yeah, like it's the mics don't pick everything up all the time.
Don't do it justice.
Which is good.
Except for Ryan.
Except for Ryan blasting ass over there.
That was pretty funny. Are they still in this? They used to be in the industrial park here. Ultra Bright
No, they're
Lights.
not.
They're not anymore?
No, they moved.
I remember going there a couple of years back.
Yeah, they're out east. Not out east, but they're like further east from
Still
here.
local. They sell a lot of stuff. I mean, they have their own products, and then they still sell whaling and all the other stuff.
Yeah,
lights
yeah.
and stuff like that.
No, they got a ton of stuff.
And they can outfit your vehicle, too. So that's always good, too.
Yeah. Department of the Week fundraiser. We understand that some departments out there are hurting for donations and funds, so we created this program. Our goal is to raise money by selling fire department t-shirts on our website where net proceeds will be sent back to the department at the end of each month. By using our platform, you'll be able to reach more people outside your area, and this is a great opportunity for us firefighters to support one another while also adding to your collection of fire department merch. If you want more information on how to get your department involved, send us a message on social media or send us an email, info@volleyhousepodcast.com. And this department of the week is the Forreston Fire Protection District out of Illinois. So the Fire Protection District formed in 1948 after taking over the community fire department. This added the rural area. They currently operate with 10 apparatus. They cover 82.5 square miles, including our town and 3 other small villages. They're one of the first SAM pumping units from Hale. Great mix of old school firefighting, but incorporating the newest technologies we can get our hands on. So that is the Forreston Fire Protection District. Head over to our website and you can grab some of their merch there. And also don't forget about the other departments that are on there too, that could still use the help.
Yeah, it's a bunch of them.
Yeah, so the Forreston
2 square miles. Wow, that's pretty big.
Yeah,
area.
I mean, some of these departments,
Well,
I know it's rural, but I mean,
America,
Jesus
but still,
Christ.
Think of how far that ride is in the rig.
It's a ridiculous, right?
I mean,
You know,
Not that you're traveling 82 miles, but you could be traveling pretty damn far.
for sure, absolutely.
It's a long response time.
Let's get into job of the week.
Job of the week.
So, again, just it's still busy. Boys over at Central Islip Fire Department today had a commercial fire with a lot of mutual aid. I believe the building was under construction.
Wisconsin had a job yesterday morning.
Yep.
Private dwelling. There's been quite a few. There's been a few in Nassau.
Yeah.
I saw her out there. So they're still pumping along.
Yeah. And also the Longview Fire Department out of Texas with the hot
going.
air balloon rescue.
Hot air balloon.
Yeah, high angle rescue. So Kevin and I did a video kind of breaking it down a little bit that we put up on our YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out.
Well, we didn't break it down, but we just talked about what's kind of involved in it.
That's breaking it down, Kev.
We didn't break down what they did.
I'm just saying we broke down the whole process, the training behind it,
process.
certain things. Yeah, now you got my
process.
fucking New York accent coming out.
That's after talking to Sal yesterday.
Yeah. So, yeah, did you want to just hit on that quick here?
Yeah, well, when we talked about it yesterday, I mean, we went from talking about CO to talking about hot air balloons on towers, so it was kind of a big switch up. I looked at it. They put out a video, I think it was today, it came out, but it had a little more footage. And, obviously, the Longview Fire Department. And I looked, they came to the Joey D. Texas event, which was pretty interesting.
Oh, nice.
Some of
it would make
members.
sense. They're down there in Texas, yeah.
But, the radio tower was over 1,000 feet tall. The balloon was stuck up about 920 feet, so pretty far up there. And it took them, I think he said, 70 minutes to climb the tower to get up to the victims. So that's considerable. But, when you're climbing 900 feet, it's a long way. And not only you're climbing straight up a ladder. It's not like you're going on a slight angle. You're going straight up. And that takes a lot. Carrying gear.
I was just going to say, you got the
So
gear
now
with
you're taking rope equipment and carabiners and, probably some medical equipment and everything else and ropes. It takes a lot.
Not for nothing. You think, you said 70 minutes to climb up there.
You got to take breaks on the way.
Yeah, like, I think that number is probably an impressive number. Like, quick.
I think that's pretty quick.
I think that's pretty
climb
quick.
900 feet.
Because, like you said, it's straight up. That's, you're just going directly up. There's no...
I mean, if you've ever
you got
climbed
equipment.
on a fire escape or, one of the ladders to the roof or off a fire escape, that's only going up 10 feet. And you feel it, like you're going backwards when you're climbing these things. So when you're whether it's a water tower or a radio tower, something like that, and you're going up a couple hundred feet, it takes a bit of time.
Yeah, and then when you get to a certain point, too, the wind starts really kicking up.
Well, you got the wind, you got, you get tired. You could be in the sun, down there in Texas. I'm sure it was pretty warm. I mean, when we were down there, some of the days were 80 degrees. So, now, you got to bring water, like I was talking about. You got to be able to be mentally and physically capable of doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it takes a lot out of you, and you got to take breaks, and then you have other members that you're worried about going up there. And from what I saw today, and I didn't get too deep into it, they had multiple members climb. So they had a couple members climb all the way to the top. They had others go, a couple hundred feet below them. And when they brought the victims over, they eventually started lowering down. I think they said they had 300-foot ropes. So they probably got close to 300 feet down, and then they stopped there, and then there was another group that would lower them from there down. And they kept basically leapfrogging all the way down until they got down to the bottom of this tower. So they had to reset a couple times, basically.
You think they drew straws before they went up there? Like, who's got to climb all the way to the top?
All right, guys, who's going? That's
Where's
a
the
long way up there.
Where's the probie? Send them up there.
So, and then, people love to put comments out there. I see all different comments of what people write. And one guy's like, why didn't they use a helicopter? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, blow the fucking balloon right off the
you
tower.
blow the balloon off the balloon was attached to one of the guide wires. So, even with these towers at that height, they got to have guide wires to come down and support it from swaying back and forth and falling over. And they go out a considerable distance, too. So, that's where it was really hooked up. And, I mean, that thing could have let go at any time or just crashed to the ground. And that could have been a big problem. So, they secured the basket, it looked like. They set up a high point above, and then they moved each victim over. There were 2 of them in the basket, brought them into the tower, and then lowered them down a couple hundred feet at a time. And it took them, I think, over 4 hours to get them all the way to the ground. So, this started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're going a long time. Think about that. You're climbing. Did you have breakfast?
Who the fuck is flying a hot air balloon at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Well, it's a big deal all over the country. I mean, it's
No, I know.
everywhere, and these things happen every once in a while. Every once in a while, you see one hit a power line or something like that.
Yeah, I've
it's
seen
it's
those
going
before.
to happen depending
Well,
on
the last crazy one
conditions and
was
wind.
the one. It was in South America. There was a hot air balloon and actually caught fire, and it was pretty fucked up to watch. Like people were, this thing was high up there. People were jumping out of the thing, and ultimately fell to their deaths.
Oh God,
Yeah, I don't
terrible.
know. Hot air balloons. I don't think I'm getting one of those fucking
You don't think
things.
you get one? You're too nervous?
Yeah.
You climbing a radio tower?
If I needed to, yeah.
Right. I hope you brought a couple Snickers bars up there or
Yeah, I
something,
know.
right? I mean, get hangry while you're up there.
Oh, for sure.
Geez, I didn't have my breakfast.
Yeah, you need your Wheaties in the morning. Speaking of,
I hope you don't have to go to the bathroom while you're up there. That's a long way.
Yeah.
You're up there for 4 or 5 hours.
yeah, right.
Jesus.
Speaking of complex rescue scenarios, All Hands Fire, one of our newest sponsors, not only offers NFPA compliant rope rescue training, they also supply thousands of firefighting, rescue, tactical, and safety products to departments nationwide. Their goal is to support teams both on scene and in training, and they currently hold 5 Sourcewell contracts, making purchasing simple for departments. Their most recent Sourcewell contract is for public safety training and equipment and technology. To learn more, visit allhandsfire.com, and for department training, go to allhandsfiretraining.com. So again, that is All Hands Fire, and yeah, for orders over $50, use code VOLLY, VOLLY, and get a free challenge coin.
Free challenge going. They're pretty cool. I have them.
Yeah,
He's got 3 different ones. They're pretty neat.
no, that's cool.
But yes, getting back to that type of training and Don's staff, and I work for Don occasionally, but he has some guys that are SPRAT certified, right? And that's Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians.
Sounds right, yeah.
That sounds right, right?
Yeah.
I think I got it right, SPRAT, but SPRAT certified. So rope access and rope technician kind of work, it's big money. It's interesting. We were talking yesterday at my Valley house, and they were talking about they had some guys working on our. We have an antenna behind our firehouse, pretty tall, and the guys that were working on it and changing out some of the pieces of the tower for the radio antennas and stuff, they were all Jersey City firemen that came out and they were doing the work. And there's big money in this rope access stuff. If you're into that kind of stuff, I would recommend taking SPRAT classes because you'll work in coliseums and football stadiums and radio towers, stuff like that. And it's a lot of work. And Don has a lot of great guys working for him, including myself. No, he's got some very highly trained guys, and there were a couple guys that I've worked with. Last year we did a class in Fort Lee off the Palisades, right off the cliffs.
Oh, yes,
and we
that's
were
right.
doing a Arizona Vortex class, and we were lowering people off the side of the Palisades cliffs. It was really cool, But when you start getting into this stuff, it's pretty neat that you're able to do this and actually see it, and being on the edge of the Palisades and looking down off the cliffs is pretty wild.
Right.
But he's got some great guys that work for Petzl and Sterling and everybody else, and then FDNY firefighters, Jersey City guys, and throughout Jersey and stuff like that.
Yeah, they go over in the Joey D seminar episode that we did. They go over basically the evolution that they were doing, or evolutions that they were doing.
Well, we were doing
smokehouse.
tower rescue was one of the things.
That was
all
one of them.
hands
Yeah, they were
was
doing a bunch, but
at the Joey D seminar on Long Island. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
In
they
that
were doing
video
rope
that we
access,
did.
and then they were also doing bailout and stuff like that. So he's got a wide range of guys that do all different stuff, whether it's RIT training, SCBA training, confidence, water rescue, boats, you name it, he does it.
Yeah, they do a lot.
So there's a lot there, and there's a lot to learn. Listen, you perishable skills. You got to keep up on this stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of all that, we have a few things that we have in the works with our channel. So like Kevin and I had mentioned, we did a shorter, like 20-minute video on this recent hot air balloon rescue, And
playing
gonna
with
be,
stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be kind of going in depth with certain things, from incident recaps to public safety training. Just some stuff that people are out there browsing around, might want to know something, or they're curious about something that firefighters do. We'll be doing some of that, and then also some training snippets. So keep an eye out for those. And if you don't follow us on YouTube, be sure to give us a follow, and you can get notified when those videos come out. But we'll also put it out on social media as well. So,
Good stuff.
yep. With that, let's get into our friends over at Boots and Brisket Soap Co. So this episode is proudly sponsored by Boots and Brisket Soap Company, a veteran-owned American small business that understands the importance of starting with the basics to keep your family healthy. Their tallow soaps are crafted with a short, honest ingredient list. No lengthy chemical names, no dyes, no nonsense. Just traditional soap that respects your skin and your values. Stock up for your home at bnbsoapco.com. That's BNB soapco.com, and use code VOLLY, VOLLY 10 for 10% off. Active duty, veterans, and first responders can also verify through Verify Pass to receive 15% off once verified. So that is Boots and Briskets, and you got a bunch of soap headed your way.
I think it came as soon as I left.
Of course it did.
Because as soon as I left the house, UPS pulled up in front of my house
it's
and
probably
dropped
there.
off a package. So I have a feeling that's what it is.
Yeah, well,
I'll find out when I get home.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have a class later tonight, right?
Yes, I gotta go from here to there.
What are you
Always,
teaching tonight?
always teaching something.
What's on the menu for tonight?
Scenarios,
Just scenarios.
size up scenarios,
That's good.
hose line stretching, estimations of sizes of buildings, you name it.
I like
How
that.
much
That's
hose
good.
he needs, you name it. What to say on the radio.
Or what not to say on the radio.
Give a good size up, paint the picture for everybody.
So let's get into some topic submissions here. Like I
You know,
mentioned,
we haven't had a suspended or not in a while.
I know,
We
yeah.
got to get some suspended or not. So if you're out there and you got a good one, we haven't had any good ones lately.
I know. Yeah, I guess everyone's walking on eggshells nowadays. Nobody wants to fuck up and learn. But we do have some topic submissions, and
All right, hit me.
like we talked about earlier, we put this out every week on our Facebook and Instagram, and there are a couple of submissions that come through that have already been talked about in depth. Just listen to our show, and you will find out.
Well, they can go back and listen to some of it.
That's what I'm
Maybe
saying.
they want more information. All
Maybe
hit
they
me. What do
do.
you got? What do you got? I didn't look, so.
So this
I don't know what we
one
got.
I thought was really interesting. Departments that do callbacks on automatic alarms and allow the homeowner or business owner to determine if a response is warranted. So pros, less bullshit alarms to respond to and mitigating liability. Cons, homeowners may actually have a problem they're not aware of, and points also may work against the members.
Points. So the
Like
call,
if it
the
goes
call
through.
comes in, it goes through, and then they call back.
Yes,
Which
or
we do that.
yes, or it could be
Because
Or it could be they call back right away and they don't even tap them out.
well, somebody's got to take some responsibility for that. But
So this is one thing that I've heard before, and obviously it doesn't happen all the time, but you could potentially have, and I'm not trying to fearmonger here, but you could potentially have somebody who calls back because there's an automatic fire alarm coming through. They call dispatch, say, no, everything's good here, steam from the shower, click. Meanwhile, it's somebody torching their fucking house.
I'm gonna give
and
you
delaying the response.
I'm gonna give you that actual thing happened.
Okay,
to us.
so there you
That
go.
actually happened to my department.
Let's hear it.
So, husband and wife, domestic kind of situation. The husband lit the house on fire on purpose. The alarm came in. They called the fire. The fire department banged out the call. And then they called back the residents. The husband answered the phone. He said, everything's fine. I was just cooking. The next call came in was direct from a neighbor across the street that said the house is on fire across the street.
Oh.
And it actually happened. So while I agree that we should be doing that and trying to reduce nuisance alarms, it could come back and bite us. Now, does it really bite us in the ass? It didn't, because we had confirmation that it was the homeowner. But it's very difficult sometimes to play that game. And if a person says they don't know why it went off, I mean, we get a lot of them steam from the shower, right? The detectors in the hallway outside the bathroom,
Yep.
not a good spot. We're going to get into that when we talk about smoke alarms, CO alarms. People buy them and they put them in that, but they don't know where to put them, and
Right.
they put them in the wrong spots, like a smoke detector in the kitchen, bad place. Smoke detector above the oil burner, bad place. Or a CO alarm. So you don't want it that close, but you want it close enough that it's going to activate fast enough. So we have to be very cautious with that. But yeah, I understand the idea of calling back. I think it's smart, and I think somebody has to take the responsibility. It's usually going to be an officer or chief that's going to cancel it out. On recontact, it's steam from the shower or something that's not important. We don't need a response. And sometimes people call right away before the alarm. We bang it out and they cancel it. So
I think
I think it's good to reduce nuisance alarms. But yes, on the other side of it, for volleys that are responding, that could be charged against you sometimes if the alarm goes through, and then you have to go down and sign in for no reason and stuff like that. And it's a bit of annoying. You got to kind of weigh everything out.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some more education on our part about the level of education of the general public.
Well, that's
And
part of what we're supposed to be doing is
Right.
public education.
Right, but it's like the reason we decided we were going to start doing some of these like little videos, like the public service videos, is because you get it, I get it a bunch, where people are like, hey, what would happen if XYZ? Or people that have called me like, yo, my CO detectors are going off. Call the fucking fire department. What are you calling me for? They don't want to cause a whole scene,
Correct.
but it's like, you have no idea.
I've had neighbors call me for that.
Right, and it's like, I'm not there. I don't know what could potentially be giving off carbon monoxide, but if your carbon monoxide detectors are going off in your house, you have young kids in the house, call the fucking fire department. Let them come and figure it out. That's what we're here for. We're not bothered because your CO detector's going off. Sure, is it annoying when you have the people with like the old smoke detectors that are chirping and they think it's going
Correct.
off?
Or
Yes.
battery.
But like at the same time, you want to be there for the community. If you show up and they're like, I don't know what this noise is, and it's a chirping alarm, see if you can help them replace the batteries, or see if it's an old detector and it needs to go. Like, be there for the department. But to what you were saying before, like that whole thing with the homeowner calling back.
Yeah,
don't know
like I
what's
said, I
going
mean,
on.
it only happened once, and it was, probably 20 years ago. But, is that a possibility of that could happen? There are times where a lot of times we'll have the chief continue in just to check
Yeah.
it out. Or if there's an engine on the road, we'll have them check it out, if you're close by, just make sure everything's all right. But, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some sort of risk or liability there.
The other thing too is usually, I mean, I know for our area, I don't know how this is based everywhere else, but this is more specific to the way county dispatch works. You get a 911 phone call coming through, PD gets it first. Mm-hmm. So usually a police
Slight
officer
delay.
gets sent out, then the fire department gets toned out after. So at the very least, you have a police officer responding in. However, if it's a direct call to your dispatch center, the dispatcher usually has to then call PD to let them know, hey, we just received an alarm for
Correct.
XYZ, and respond in. So
And sometimes the police is delayed because they're
Yeah.
on another call, and that happened to us last night. We were doing a duty crew. We went to the deli for dinner, and call came in for an alarm, and it was literally down the street. So I banged a U-turn, went right down the street. We were there in under 2 minutes, and sure enough, it was automatic alarm. It wasn't nothing, and they told us that on the way there, but we were already there.
so why not go check
So
it
we're
out?
like, we're here. And, sure enough, we leave, and I'm stopped at the traffic light, and here comes the cop the other way, and I see him throw his lights on. I go, oh, he wants to know what happened. So he goes, what happened? I said, cooking related, it's all good. He's like, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And he left. So sometimes you get there before them. It's just the way it is. There are some places across the country, they don't send the police. It's just
Yeah,
the
well,
fire
that's what I'm
department.
saying. Like, I know
Unless
for
it's a
our
working
area.
fire. In our
Yeah.
area, they go to everything.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're getting the call through county, so it's going through 911. They're getting the call first. So they're on the road, they're going to get there faster
Yeah.
if they're available.
But like you were saying too, you get a call if a chief's on the road or something like that. Dispatch says, "Yeah, you get a call back from the premise stating it's smoke from cooking, steam from the shower, whatever." Maybe that chief can roll in, normally, no lights or
Yeah,
sirens.
just drive there, just check, make sure
Yeah, because that's
everything's
the
all right.
thing. If it is bullshit, it's like a double-edged sword. If it is bullshit and you got guys flying through the district, lights and sirens, and crash into somebody, that's a problem.
Right.
And then on the other extreme end of it, somebody could call, and it could be an arsonist lighting shit on fire that tries to slow down the fire department. So, do with that what you will.
Yeah. It's really personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, but
So, second
I think the chances of that happening
are slim.
are very slim that
Yeah.
you have an arsonist trying to burn the house down.
Yeah.
Most likely it is set off from cooking, steam, or something
Absolutely.
like that. Or maybe a fire. Like, we were talking about the fire they had out in Middle Place a couple weeks ago. It came in as a second floor smoke detector. Chief pulled up, smoke's coming out of the eaves. Working fire. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Oh, absolutely. The next one, we've hit on this topic before, but it seems to be creating another stir on our Facebook post asking about topics. So, officer requirements. We will hit on it again. There's some departments, like you say, Kev, that are 20 years ahead and have these
20 years ahead, 20
have
years
these
behind.
set up, and then there's the ones that are behind and don't have the requirements. And I think where people get a little crazy about this is you have people getting into positions that are not leader material, not so much lack of training or experience. That's what I gather from all this stuff.
There's both.
There is both,
I mean,
but I'm just
look,
saying.
we've been starting to talk to people across this country where departments have zero training. They do everything
Yes,
in-house. They
yes.
don't even have a firefighter 1 certificate. And, this constantly comes up, whether it's in New York or it's in Vermont or New Hampshire, Rhode Island or Colorado. This is all over the country. And I know that seems very odd to probably a lot of the listeners from this jurisdiction or area where we go out to Suffolk County or Nassau County, get our firefighter 1 certificate. Some go on to get firefighter 2 certificates, take the national cert exams and everything else. Across the country, that's not happening. And, I say all the time, we should be investing more in the fire service. We don't put enough money forward. We don't put enough training. We don't have enough academies across this country that, people are getting the proper training that they need. And it's out there. I mean, if you want it, a lot of it is free. Whether it's a federal government course, whether you're going down to Emmitsburg or you're going to, New York State Fire Academy or, Connecticut State Fire Academy or, a county fire academy, there are trainings out there. And the federal government even has trainings in other areas where you can go for hazmat or, rail car and highway. There's all sorts of free trainings out there that are available to you. And there's also grants available to send your members for training. So the problem with the volunteer fire service is, we all have regular jobs. And to get off a week or go away somewhere to go for training, that's taking money out of our pockets sometimes. And some people only have a week or two of vacation a year. They can't take their week of vacation to go to a training somewhere. So there are a lot of avenues. There's a lot of seminars, like Joey D and, FDIC and Firehouse and Fire Engineering and all these different, and there's all small conferences out there too. And it's not going to give you maybe a firefighter 1 certificate, but it's going to give you some training and experience. So you got to seek out training. That's one thing. You can even go online and take a lot of stuff online these days. But it is a problem, and even my own department, and I think we're a pretty progressive department here on the island. We're always trying to make ourselves better. We didn't have officer training requirements up until probably about 8-9 years ago. It was, you had to have a year of probation, 2 years as a badge holder. You can run for lieutenant. No other training. And then for a captain, you had to have 11 months as a lieutenant and 5 years in the department in order as a badge holder to run for captain. And then for chief, it was 7 years. You had to be an EMT. You had to have incident command at least. That's what we require. But once again, that was the only requirement, 7 years in the department. So, we've come a long way. Now we require firefighter 2, we require RIT training, heavy rescue, we require a lot of different courses, and even fire officer 1 now for, a lot of our officers. So it's based on your position and where you are in the scale, but everybody needs something. We even require our chiefs now to have ICS 300, which a lot of departments don't have. But, there are a lot of departments that still have zero requirements. It's the good old boys club, or you buy me beers on a weekend and I'll vote you in for chief. Some people don't even have to be a lieutenant to become captain. They can go right to captain, or they can go right to chief.
Ooh, yeah.
In some places.
Heard that a couple
So,
times, yeah.
I hate to say it's just different everywhere. And, just like I say when we call in mutual aid or automatic aid, what are you getting from these neighboring departments that are coming?
Right.
Do they have any requirements?
I think
Do their members even have firefighter 1? You don't even know what these departments have. So, it's very difficult that you're taking that risk of liability on, but, you're relying on another chief from another department that may have zero requirements and you may have a lot. Or maybe vice versa. They may have more training and knowledge than you do. So I think it's important to look and see what other people have. I think, you should look at what requirements are out there. I could put ours out there, what we came up with, but there's a lot of different avenues to get proper training for an officer. But somebody should have some sort of training. You taking pictures again? Should I smile?
I agree with what you're saying, and I think this is also one of the double-edged sword type of things, because some people may look at it as, oh, well, this is too hard to be an officer. There's too much shit I have to do.
And we have that. We have that in my department,
Yes.
where there's some people that will not run for office because they don't want to take that training.
Right.
They
And
don't have the time.
The other side of it is a lack of requirements. You have a much larger pool
Lack of
people,
knowledge.
and that's where the lack of knowledge comes in, or just simply the lack of people skills. So
And then there's other people that are great. Maybe their outside job gives them that ability or that level of training without having training.
Yeah.
So like you said, it is a double-edged sword. Some people are natural leaders. Some are not.
I've said this before, but the people in the department that are really solid firefighters, they're very quiet, usually very humble type people. Those are the perfect people to be officers. And
Yes and
they, well, obviously you got to look into exactly who they are as people, but there's been plenty of them that I've seen where it's like, this guy would be a great officer, but they're not the type that's going to be like, hey guys, I'm running for officer. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. Or they simply don't want to deal with bullshit from the top where it's just too much. But like, those are the types of people that you would want as an officer, because they're usually very calm, cool, collected. They don't let the bullshit get to them. They do what they have to do, and they're always there to train their guys. Those are really the people you want to be looking for officer. They're not going to be the ones that, like I said, are going to put it out there. I'm going to run for officer. Those are the guys where, when they're sitting down at the firehouse kitchen table, you have a couple of guys approach them and be like, hey, we want you to be officer. This is why. And they would probably be more than likely to be like, all right, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, but there are very good firefighters that they're not great bosses. It's just reality.
No, that's what I'm
So
saying.
you have a little of everything, and it's a hard road no matter how you look at it. It really is, no matter what you do. But I think you should have some sort of knowledge and education and base to be an officer. I really do. You're running RIT to another department, and you got an officer sitting up front that's not trained in RIT and has no idea what it's all about. Everybody can do the basic skills. I get that, but what are we really providing to people? We just got added to somebody else's mutual aid plan for RIT or a standby engine. And I said, if you don't have RIT, you should get trained, because we're going to be going.
Somebody asked about that, it's not on the topics, but somebody had asked about what the requirements are for people to respond to a RIT call. So obviously you have the RIT operations class that you could take, but how often are you guys drilling on RIT calls?
It depends. So we do it as a company, and the department does it as well from time to time. So, it really just depends. Like, our last department drill, no, maybe not the last one, but one of the last ones, we did a thing on packaging firefighters. We did removing their gear when they get out of the building, starting CPR, stuff like that, and that could be somebody that's on the outside of the building too. Like we had our EMS and everybody involved in that, but what's the proper way and quickest way to get a person's gear off and start CPR on a firefighter? So, like these are all the processes of how to package somebody, how to move somebody, how to drag somebody, and there's a lot to RIT, and even when you take the county-based class, we're giving you basic techniques. You got to go back to your department and try this stuff. There's other ways of doing it, and it's coming up with a plan and being able to do that.
You say all the time the perishable skills.
They're all perishable skills.
It's everything in firefighting
Everything
is perishable. But when you look at depending on where your department's located, like here on Long Island, it's very municipal here. A lot of smaller size district compared to like these ones that are 85 square miles.
There's some big ones on the island, though.
No, I know. I'm saying, but you're getting called. You may be called to as a RIT unit a lot more frequent than a department in a rural area. So there's that complacency part of it where it's, we're going for RIT, and you show up, and what do? Sitting on the lawn with your hooks, waiting around.
Hopefully not sitting. I hope you're buckled up, ready to go.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you're just sitting
there.
Well,
but there are people that show up and they're not prepared.
Well, that's dumb.
And it is dumb.
But I'm saying that it's like, you get there, you're the RIT crew, and for the most part, nothing really happens. And if you're not prepared,
you hope nothing happens.
You hope nothing happens. And what happens typically? Go to RIT call, you're standing around for a little bit, and then they let you go in and do some overhaul. And that's how it works. But if you do get in a call where a firefighter goes down, or if there is, say, like a collapse situation in the house where the guys operating inside can't necessarily get to that firefighter right away, which is what they usually try and do, now you really have to prepare for it. So you do have to really know your shit if you're going to get on a rig and respond as RIT or fast.
I think there's a lot of people that are RIT trained that think they know and think they can do, and they can't. I can promise you they can't.
Right.
But, the numbers are there. I think it's somewhere around 80% of the firefighters that get lost, trapped, or missing in a fire are usually found by somebody operating in close proximity to them. It's somewhere in that number. So everybody should be trained in RIT. Everybody should understand how to package somebody. Like, if I get in this situation, I'm going to try to turn my SCBA into a harness before they even get there, if I can do it myself. So God forbid you have to drag me out. You're ready to go. A lot of people don't understand the DRD, the drag device that's on your coat. We all have them, but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to use it properly. There's ways to actually use it. There's ways to make it so that it doesn't cinch up so tight on you if you wrap it around a shoulder strap. There's so many different things and techniques, and we're not practicing enough. And just like we were talking about with deck guns of, not understanding how far it goes, or if I'm really going to make an impact of my positioning of the rig. Same thing goes with RIT and everything else we do. We need to practice more. We got to train to that level, or challenge ourselves, make ourselves uncomfortable to the point that we're going to learn better. And it's not that we're looking to set people up for failure. We're setting up people to understand that this is tough work.
Right.
RIT work is tough work. If a firefighter goes down and you're the fast truck or RIT, you got to be prepared to act, and you got to be able to push yourself, push the limits a little bit. The rescues and squad in the New York City Fire Department, the way we train and the way we do things as a group, as a whole, and individually as well, is to such a high level that, we're not going to fail. We know we're the last line of defense.
Right.
If nobody else is going to get you, we're going to get you. And that's how we train our guys. And there is a program that we run, Advanced Firefighter Removal in the New York City Fire Department. And the class that these guys, they came up with such a great class. But it goes through all different fatal fires that we've had and situations we had and how to get through them. And we blast heaters at them, jet-fired heaters at them to go through a hole in the floor with smoke. You can't see anything.
Right.
Collapses and situations. And we put people to the test because we know we got to be that last line of defense and be able to do it. And sometimes in the volley end, we don't push people far enough. We say, yeah, you can package somebody. Yeah, you can drag somebody. You can do this. Sometimes you got to push people a little harder.
Right.
And I know we'll never be there because you never know who's going to be on the rig. You don't know what's going to happen. But we have to prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario sometimes.
So that also kind of goes into the next submission, which is SOGs and departments that don't follow them. So I've seen it a bunch of times, specifically to what we were just kind of talking about, people having certain requirements that were written into the SOGs that got into certain positions that didn't have these requirements, and it was kind of, blind eye looked at. It really comes down to if your department has certain SOGs and SOPs that need to be followed, you got to follow them, unless you haven't looked at them in a while, and some of them might be outdated, which kind of ties into the next thing, which is procedures that have come and gone in the fire service and what is still used today. So what are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot to that as well. We have a lot of outdated policies. I could say that even my own department, we try to update things as best as possible. There's things that we don't always follow, or it's not the norm anymore. And, something that's not the norm is fine if that's the way we're going to do it, but we need to change the policy to coincide with that. And sometimes we don't always do that. We're not fast enough, especially with bylaws, right? And bylaws in volunteer fire service, it's tough to change them the way they're written, and it depends on your department, how it's set up, how you set it up for readings, whether it's you got to read it 2 times, vote on it a third. Some of them now you can send it out in email form where they can view it and then they can vote on it. But, there's those changes with where you might have certain requirements for your officers and stuff that we don't normally follow. Or what happens when you have that member that's short by a couple months, and now they're running for office, so they want, the board or somebody to give them permission to give them time. And I don't think that's always good either, because, what are we doing? We're giving a person time that they don't have, or doesn't exist, unless you were in a formal department or something like that. But, sometimes you got to kind of wait till you have the ability or time. But same thing goes with our operating procedures, whether you call them SOPs, SOGs, you can call them anything you want. You could still be held for those regardless in the law,
Right.
regardless of how it is a policy. I mean, there is ways that you can leave gray areas in your policies to keep it safe, because if
Yes.
you don't follow it, it's not such a bad thing. But you got to be very careful in your policies and the way they're written and the way you do things.
I have an
But
example
we
of one.
have a lot of that, like maybe you have a minimum response, right? You got to have 4 people on the rig, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then the chief authorizes for 3 or 2. Well, where does it say in your policy that you can ride with 2 or 3? It probably isn't written in there, but we authorize it. So now you're disobeying your own policies. So, same thing with RIT. Like we send 4 RIT people out. You got to be 4 RIT trained to be on the rig, or Proby doesn't go out of the district like, Ryan has, or my district has. But then I've seen Probies go out of the district because they're riding on a duty crew and they're part of that crew and they go, or they were on one alarm and then went to the next. Well, now we're violating our own policies, and it's not good to violate, policy.
It's another thing too, to really, because when you join the department, or if a policy gets updated, they hand it out usually, or they send it out via email. How many people are actually reading that? And the example that I
That's if
have,
they do.
That's what I'm saying. The example that I have is the department's policy for carbon monoxide runs states if it's a CO emergency, meaning there are people showing symptoms, you have victims, you respond lights and sirens. If it is a CO activation with no symptoms or anything like that, you were supposed to respond with no lights and sirens. That's the type of thing, like if people aren't reading really into those bylaws, and like we're going to a CO activation, lights and sirens, and we say this all the time, you smack somebody on the way there and it winds up being catastrophic, they're going to look into that type of shit, and they're going to see like, hey, why was this guy going lights and sirens when your SOGs, your SOPs say that they should have been rolling to this normally? So you really have to enforce it, and if it's to the point where people are seeing it in real time, or you see it in real time, just pull somebody aside and be like, hey, are we still supposed to be doing this? Because the bylaw or the SOGs, SOPs state this. Just, you want to put it out there, but you don't want to be the tattletale. If something
Like I
gets
said,
bad.
there isn't a department out there that follows their policies to the T. I don't care who you are.
For sure.
The best fire departments, paid departments, short, combination departments, nobody follows their policies to a T. It doesn't happen. Nobody does.
Right.
And, there are certain things that we allow or disallow, but you can't always allow it to happen and then try to hold somebody accountable for it.
Yes. Yeah,
And that's another big problem. So you can't pick and choose what you like or what you don't like. But it is difficult. And then when you look at some of the policies, when they were written or why they were written, is it really correct anyway? Like CO emergencies, there are policies out there that says bring CO levels down to a safe level. Well, what the hell does that mean? You ask 5 different people, that means something different to each person of what a safe level of CO is, right? And, I teach a lot of this stuff, and I talk to guys, and I say, what is your policy in your department? They're like, even if our readings are 0 at the door, we have to put our Facebook piece and SCBA on to go inside that building. And I'm like, why? Like, that's ridiculous. Then some are any type of reading, they have to wear it. Some are, if it's over 10, 9 or more, we have to wear SCBA. Some are 25, some are 35, all these different numbers and stuff. And it's like, where did these even come up with? Like, who came up with these policies? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand. And every time I talk about it, like OSHA says a worker can take up to 50 parts per million per day in an 8-hour day. And then we're forcing people to put SCBAs on at a minuscule amount when everybody's breathing in CO all the time.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. And even NIOSH says you can take up to 35 parts per million in an 8-hour day, a worker. Now, I get it. There shouldn't be CO in somebody's residential house, maybe a little because they're cooking on the stove or, a little back puff or something like that. I get it. There can always be a little CO. But, like, where did we create these policies? Mm-hmm. And who was the person that made that decision? And we're supposed to, every year, every January or the beginning of your year, you're supposed to review all your policies and procedures, and you got to sign off on those. The chief and the board or whoever's in charge signs off on those policies. And what do? We rubber stamp them year to year. Nobody looks at them and says, you know what, we haven't followed this policy in 5 years. Like, let's get rid of it. Let's change it. Let's fix it. We don't. And I don't understand. And anytime I bring it up to somebody, I'm like, yeah, well, we should really rewrite that and fix it. And they're like, yeah, they got other things to do. And it really shouldn't be that way. So we really should be looking at policies, procedures, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what we should be doing. Maybe we came up with a better way. That's fine. But let's update our policies, update our bylaws, because we don't want somebody to get in a jam for not following that policy.
Right, yep.
So you got to be careful. And then, God forbid, somebody does get killed, OSHA and PESH and the lawyers, they're all going to come in and everybody's going to point fingers and sue somebody. And you could see accountability is starting to come to the fire service. For a long time, it wasn't there. There was a payout somewhere across the country. It was paid department, I believe, $31 million settlement to a family.
Yeah.
The husband, firefighter, died. And they looked at both of the chiefs and gave them 50% fault each, the chiefs, for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think we get a lot of people that have become officers or chiefs, and they don't understand the liability or risk that's on their head.
Right. Solar panels. So, again, that was something from last week that we didn't really hit on. You did touch on them a little bit with the snow. But yeah, they're going to hinder roof operations depending on the circumstances, and could potentially be cause for collapse depending on how many are on the house. So I do know this, that they won't put solar panels on an older roof unless like you get it done improperly.
Usually a roof has to be minimum of 10 years or newer.
Yeah.
In order for them to put panels on it, but that's not even half your problem though. It's got to have the prop. They're not going to put them on there unless they go. I had solar panels put on my house. I have them on one side, And they come and they do a whole survey of your property. They look at your roof. They look at your rafters, that it could support the weight, everything. So they look at your electrical system. So they're not going to put a system in unless a happy homeowner does it on their own. These companies are not going to put it in there unless it meets
Right, yeah.
certain standards or limitations. So that's one thing. The other thing is, yeah, it could hamper things. It could cause a problem. There were people saying you could put tarps on them and all this stuff. It doesn't really work. It could still be getting light through the tarp and could actually still energize those panels. And you got to remember, that's all DC current, direct current. It's not alternating current like in your home. So it's actually has an inverter on the side of your house or in your garage or your basement somewhere that takes it from DC power and converts it to AC power that goes back into the grid. So you got to shut down these systems, shut down the inverters, shut down the breakers and stuff like that. But there are a few online programs you can take. I've taken a couple of them that gives you the basic rundown of how a system works and why it works, and the inverters and micro inverters and all this stuff, and what you can do with it. There are people that will tell you that from a certain distance with a fog pattern, you can use water on solar panel fires. I believe it's, and don't hold me to this, I believe it's over 25 feet. I'd have to look it up. But you got to be very careful. You don't want to be shooting water on electric and stuff like that. But there are some limitations of what you can and cannot do. So the other thing, too, is you could have a solar panel fire on the roof that's not in the building, that you would have to investigate and, get these solar panel companies in there to shut down the system. Or disconnect it so that you're not having a problem.
So in other words, you're saying that you couldn't go and shut down from the property itself?
Well, you can. You could shut the inverters off and you can shut the breakers off, but you're still going to have power. As long as they're light on that panel, you'll have power down that wire all the way to that inverter, wherever that inverter is. So, it's something you have to be concerned about. I've had a couple of these fires. Even if it is in the building and then gets out of the side of the building or goes through that roof onto those panels, could cause more of a problem. A branch or something hitting it, or hail, heavy hail, I mean not small hail, could break a panel and it could cause it to short out and start a fire. So that's happened as well. So you got to be careful with these things. But I would recommend getting some training, looking online, or going to a seminar or something on solar panels. They're going to be around. They're going to keep coming. There's probably going to be more. They're starting to invent solar panels that are part of a shingle. I believe Tesla has that now, where the shingle of the roof is actually a solar panel. Like the shingles are part of it. So I think we're going to see more and more of this in the future as we move forward. But just be aware it's out there and be careful. Stay away from it. If you fall onto it, you break it. They're on flat roofs. They're on commercial buildings now. They're everywhere. Solar panels are everywhere.
It's funny. I remember when they first came out, it was the talk going around the fire service is very similar to the talk going on now about lithium-ion batteries.
Not as bad, though.
Not as bad, but
Not
I
as
remember
bad.
like
The battery storage systems is the big thing right now.
Yeah, no,
nobody
but I'm
wants that
saying
in their neighborhood.
The solar panels were the big talk of the town. It's like, well, now these are going to hamper operations, stuff like that, and it's always manufacturers are coming out with shit to either make things better for a homeowner or whatever it may be, without keeping the fire department in mind. And we're always the ones that have to come up with the
it's always the last resort. I mean, I'm glad that there are certain people working for the fire service now and doing this kind of things. For one is Paul Rogers. He was a lieutenant in Hazmat 1 in New York City. He's been helping with the codes and, notifying fire departments and fire districts that these things are coming to their areas, or, what they can do, and, trying to set these things up or work with these people to make it safer for firefighters. And, he's got a bunch of people working for him. But these things are going to continue to happen, these battery storage systems. And, nobody wants it. They all want the power. They all want the electricity. They all want everything until it's in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I don't want this shit. And, it's going to burn for a long period of time, and it's going to give off toxic gases, and it is detrimental to, your area. And I'm not saying I'm against these things. I think they're good if they're put in the right places. But look at Long Island. I mean, we're so populated. There's stuff everywhere. It's going to affect somebody somewhere. So what do you do?
Right.
But we have to be careful, and there's going to be more of them. Now you have the Tesla Powerwalls. What the hell's going on in there?
I don't know.
Tesla Powerwalls, battery storage in people's homes, people charging their cars, and, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
And we're not set up. And, you look at New York City, right? They put all these bike lanes in, and people are blocking hydrants. Now I saw a thing yesterday putting planters in front of hydrants. Like they think they're doing right, but they don't talk to the fire department about it. You put a huge planter in front of a fire hydrant. Well, now the fire truck can't get there.
Right.
And maybe it can get close, but now it blocks all the other rigs out. Or you can't make the turn, or the ladder can't get close enough to the building to reach up to the upper floors. Like the last person they're thinking of is the fire service.
I feel like the city needs to put like bars on the trucks to just smash shit out of the way, because that's literally what it's coming down
you
to.
could. I mean,
I know the city's got some phenomenal chauffeurs, but
they built the rigs pretty tight.
yeah, but I'm just saying.
But years ago, when we had open cabs, some of them had cages over them, so when people threw shit at you when you're driving by, you could protect yourself.
Right.
I mean, there's some real odd shit that happens, but and I dealt with a lot of that stuff where all of a sudden DOT would just put barricades up, or they put these block off these lanes that we're normally used to going through. It's like, it's a one-way street and we're not supposed to go that way, but that's the way we make access there. Like, and now all of a sudden I can't go that way, so or they change the streets around because, but they don't tell the fire department.
Right.
It's the last thing. So, we have to be aware of that in our areas as volunteers. We live in these neighborhoods. We see what goes on every single day. And if you know what's going on, get involved in your local groups, right? Talk to your politicians, talk to your civic associations, right? They'll kind of try to guide you or help you a little bit at least.
Right.
But if you stay out of the picture altogether, nobody's going to know anything.
Last thing here is what to do about old equipment on the rigs for 20 plus years that have never been used.
It depends on the equipment, there are certain things that we may not use for many, many, many years, and then you're going to need it.
Yeah, that's usually the case, right?
Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. In busier areas where you're using your equipment all the time, you know what you're going to need and what you don't need. And there's stuff on everybody's rig that you probably don't need all the time, but it takes that one time, and now you need it. Think about it. How often do you use airbags? But are they important?
Yeah, when you need them.
When you need them. And it's not something I'm going to use every day, but you're going to need it at some point, Like we have floor jacks on our rig, we don't use them every day, but every once in a while you need that floor jack. So, yes, there is some older and obsolete stuff that you could probably get rid of if you don't need it. If you have something else that can do the job or do something very similar to what that is, that's fine. But, if you're still driving around with an old Navy nozzle that you never use, let's just say, and you have 16 other thousand nozzles, what do you need that Navy nozzle for? But if you have a use for it in need, you might want it. The other example is like foam, right? We don't use foam a lot, but sometimes we need it.
Right, yeah.
We got rid of all our onboard foam systems because, the foam just sitting on the rig and gelling up, and, it was always a problem. It costs a lot of money for these onboard foam systems. So for the amount of times, do we really need it? So we have inline adductors, and we use it that way with foam cans, and it works fine for us.
Yeah.
But you got to evaluate this stuff. We put a lot of money into rigs, and we do all this fancy stuff that sometimes we just don't need.
I would say, at least from an engine perspective, it's always the chauffeur's compartment that has the most amount of shit in it that's never being used. And you start there and you look at, like, I know from the departments I've been in where the neighboring departments have the different threads. So the chauffeur's compartment's got those adapters in there.
Too. Yep.
But how many of those adapters are in there?
So when we got our new engines, that was one of the things I was looking at with all the rigs. And, some of them had 6 double males, 6 double females. And I'm like, We
Yeah,
don't
like,
need all
what
of
do we
this,
need all
you
that
know.
shit for?
So, we went through it all, and we coming up with a consensus and saying, what do we actually need? And, I had one of the chauffeurs tell me, he goes, why are you getting rid of all this stuff? We need it. I go, for what? And he's like, well, what if we have, 4 lines that are in the wrong direction? I go, tell me when you've ever had 4 lines in the wrong direction. I go, maybe you have 1, maybe 2, but 4?
Yeah,
It's
you
not going to
you
happen.
got bigger problems. if
Right.
it's
We
4.
got a lot bigger problems. And if at that point, if I need 4, I can turn, I got the time to turn the hose around. You know what I mean? So, when you start really looking at what is actually necessary to do the job you do, and you think about it. Most engines, how many lines are stretching off of most rigs?
1, 2.
Maybe 2.
Yeah,
Maybe you'll get to a third. Maybe.
maybe.
For the most part. So do I need 4 double males and 4 double females?
Right.
And I don't think I'm going to make that many mistakes.
The other thing too.
Now,
is,
I get it. We used to, have hose in the back of our rig when we used to lay in before 5-inch hose. We had 2.5 and 3-inch. And one was set up was for a forward lay, one was for a reverse lay. So if you stretch both of those, but it already had the fittings on the end of the hose, and then we still had 6 more in the compartment.
Right. I
So
think a
we
lot
just
of it-
we lightened our load and made it more
a lot of it
streamlined.
too is you get these new rigs every few years, depending on where you are. Like I know when we got 2 brand new rescue pumpers, they told us put all the equipment. You guys have to figure out where to put all that equipment. The engines we had before were simply just pumpers. So we had different size compartment spaces and everything like that. And some people are just like, just put everything.
Throw it on a rig.
Yeah, get it on there somehow,
throw it on a
figure
rig.
it out. But like when you actually start looking through the shit and you're like, when was the last time this was used? Has
Correct.
it ever been used?
Correct.
And, if it's the type of thing where it could potentially be used for something, maybe put it on like a specialty rig of some sort or just have it in storage somewhere in the firehouse where, because I mean, the thing is, anything that we need where it's like we absolutely need that thing right now is probably going to be on the rig. Where stuff like you said, like where the fuck are those 4 fucking female adapters?
Besides that point, think about it. You're most likely going to have more than 1 rig there.
Yeah, and that's the other part.
So
of
if I
it
have
too.
2 on this rig and 2 on that rig, I got 4 if I really needed it.
Right.
But it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, and I get it. We try to put a lot on the rig because you may only get 1 on the road, but like how much of that do I need? And like you said, people see stuff sitting on the side and they go, oh, throw it on a rig.
Mm-hmm.
Throw it on a rig. Throw it on a rig. So we got rid of a lot of crap and old shit and just started fresh.
Yeah.
We cleaned up everything and, it's much more simplified. It's much more modernized, and like, I mean, how many outlets do you need on a rig? There's fucking outlets everywhere.
People got to charge their
you
phones.
know,
Kev.
so like we used to have 3 outlets on the back of the rig, 2 2.5s, and then, a 4-inch or a 5-inch off the rear. And I'm like, well, if you hook up to one of those, how do you know which one? It's left, right, or whatever.
Oh, you're talking about,
So-
I thought you
so-
meant the electrical outlets.
But I'm just, but I'm just discharges. But, like we went with 1 discharge in the front, 1 discharge in the rear. Nice and simple. You pull 1 lever.
Right.
The other ones we can figure out. But, like it's just, we just put too much stuff into these rigs sometimes, I think.
It is true.
So
Well, I think that just
simplification
about
is best.
wraps up 58.
That's a wrap.
That is a wrap.
That's
We'll catch you guys next week.
58 out.
Out.